Hello and welcome to Songs for the Struggling Artist, the blogcast. This is episode 312. My name is Emily Rainbow Davis. Thank you so much for listening. I just got the news that The Dragoning, which is my audio drama, is number 36 in the charts, the drama charts in Germany, which is amazing. Thank you, Germans. Are you listening to this show too? Thumbs up. Thank you. And welcome. And very cool. Also 140, I think we got to, or something like that in Denmark. Also very cool. Thank you, Danes. We're not quite there yet in the United States of America here or Australia, where most of the actors are from. So, but, you know, it's a slow burn, I think. And we did get there before last time with season 1. So we shall see. Anyway, that's the stats update. A little good news before I read you this post about guns. It's not necessarily, well, it is about guns, but it's about the fact that I tweet an XTC song fairly often. I'll tell you about it. Let me read it to you. It is called Melt the Guns. Whenever I see a story about gun violence, and it makes me feel sad and angry and helpless, I tweet a link to the XTC song Melt the Guns. I don't say what it's for. I just tweet the song. It's not a project. I don't feel like I need to stay up to date with shootings so I can catch them all or anything. There are too many for that. If you tracked all the tweets, you could probably connect them to the news story fairly easily. Not that there'd be much point in doing that. It's just you'd be able to see what a lot of gun violence I have responded to since I started doing this. I tweet this particular song because A, it's a really great song, and B, it's a pretty clear directive. What should we do about all these tragic shootings? Melt the guns and never more to fire them. Clear enough. I know it would never work in this world where guns have more rights than women or children. I fear we'll never find a way to tear the guns from the hands of killers, but as an aspiration, I feel pretty good about the idea of melting the guns. I do not give one solitary fuck about people's guns. Melt them. Seriously. We're always trying to compromise. The NRA is always sending people into a panic that we are coming for their guns. A guy I went to high school with posted that he was stockpiling his guns when Obama was elected. Every time there is a horrible, tragic school shooting, gun sales go up. The NRA have made people absolutely paranoid that every liberal policy will involve taking their guns away. It has never been thus. But fuck it. Let's do it. It's never been on the agenda before, but if the gun nuts are so afraid of it, it must be what they secretly want us to do. Maybe they're pulling a Brer Rabbit and crying out, please, oh please, whatever you do, don't take my guns away. Okay, you got it. Time for melting. I don't care anymore. I had to tweet melt the guns twice in one day when that asshole shot up the grocery store in Buffalo. Once for that nightmare, and again when someone started shooting somewhere else. I can't even remember where now. That's how many of these there are. And folks, I wrote this whole piece before Uvalde happened. When I retweeted Melt the Guns for that incident, it was still just an unconfirmed rumor that was breaking my heart. Every other country in the world understands that having a lot of guns around is a problem. If you read a travel advisory for this country, it will warn you about the potential for gun violence here. There's a Kids in the Hall sketch from decades ago that I've never forgotten. It features a tourist explaining he's from Canada and defines a Canadian as like an American without a gun. And the other person finally understands. It's funny, but horrifying, of course. The majority of Americans are not into guns. But the ones that are, oh boy. Well, they're willing to sacrifice the lives of thousands of children to keep buying them, so they have a different calculus than the rest of us. I mean, the average number of children shot per year in this country is a little under 8,000 per year. And of course, I know, not all gun owners. The farmer who needs a gun to shoot wild feral hogs or whatever, that's fine. I guess I won't melt your gun since you're going to save us from marauding porcine creatures. But the culture that encourages young, clueless men to buy guns and then go use them, that culture needs to be melted down. I keep thinking of the odd little explanation for the shooting in the front page / His Girl Friday. Have you seen these films? Or the play? The reporters work out that the odd little sweaty man ended up shooting the gun because he believed in production for use. That is, as a communist, he believed that things should be used for what they were built for. And the gun, being built for shooting, must be shot. I think a lot of gun owners are like that communist. They shoot their guns because guns are made to be shot. I bet all those gun owners wouldn't like to be called a bunch of communists for shooting their guns. We have a lot of guns in this country, and like Chekhov's famous gun, if you show us a gun in the first act, it's just got to be fired by the end of the show. The one surefire way to keep people from getting shot up is to not have guns around with which to shoot them. Like, let's go back to the feral hogs for just a second. Let's say there were a group of people who really wanted to have some around the town, some feral hogs. And every time someone suggested that maybe they were dangerous and attacking people left and right, they'd threaten to sick a feral hog on them. A country full of feral hogs is now feral hog land, just because some zealous hog lovers felt entitled to them. You can't domesticate a feral hog. That's the whole deal with them. They are feral. Same is true for an assault rifle. An assault rifle is an understatement for what it actually does. It is a mass murder rifle. They have to go. And the more folks threaten to use them against those who would seek to take them away, the more apparent it is that they have to go. Melt the guns, and never more to fire them. You may not be surprised to learn that this was not a particularly controversial blog of mine, because people who own guns don't read my blog. That's my blanket assumption. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. I don't think I have a lot of gun-toting blog readers. That would be, it would be very interesting if that were the case, but I don't think it's actually probable. So, you know what song I had to do for this blog. There really was no question. It was very hard to learn, and I ran into a couple of obstacles. One, I was doing some manual labor, and I managed to tear off the top of my thumbnail, which is my guitar picking nail, which hurt, but also makes it hard to play a little bit. So I was going to play this on my acoustic guitar and then realized that I couldn't, my thumb did not have the power that I need to pluck an acoustic string. So I moved it over to the electric and messed around with some stuff. This song is complicated. And, some of the things I love about it are impossible for one girl with a guitar to dip into. So it's a much simplified version of Melt the Guns. Obviously, it's Melt the Guns. If I haven't said, it's because it's probably obvious. But maybe not, Anyway, it was a little tricky, but yeah, I'm excited to share it with you. And we'll do that in just a minute. Meanwhile, thank you so much for listening. If you like the blogcast, please tell someone about it. Like, review, subscribe. 5 stars in Apple Podcast is helpful if you can do that. And if you'd like to support the podcast with your dollars, there's patreon.com/EmilyRDavis. There's Ko-fi, there's PayPal. All those links are in the show notes. All your support is much appreciated. And most especially having your ears on this thing. So here we go. Here is my journey, my adventure with XTC's Melt the Guns. If you have not heard their version of a song, I highly recommend it. And a very easy way to find it would be to just go to my Twitter feed, where I have retweeted it many times. Too many times. That is at @eRainbowD, in case you don't follow me on Twitter yet. Yeah, so, or you could just, Google is also a friend. So, here you go. Here's me messing around with XTC's Melt the Guns. Programs of violence as entertainment brings the disease into your room. We know the germ, which is man-made in metal, is really the key to your own tomb. Prevention is better than cure. Bad apples affecting the pure. You'll gather your senses, I'm sure, then agree to melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and never more to fire them. Melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and never more desire them. Melt the guns, you wanna melt the guns, melt the guns, and never more to fire them. Melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and never more desire them. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Children will want them, mothers supply them, as long as your killers are heroes. And all the media will fiddle while Rome burns, acting like modern time Neros. Prevention is better than cure. Bad apples affecting the pure. You'll gather your senses, I'm sure, then agree to melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and never more to fire them. Melt the guns, you melt the guns, melt the guns, and never more desire them. Melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and never more to fire them. Melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and never more desire them. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. I'm speaking to the Justice League of America, the US of A. Hey you, yes you in particular. When it comes to the judgment day and you're standing at the gates in your weaponry, you dead, go down on one knee, clasp your hands in prayer, start quoting me, 'cause we say, Our Father, we've managed to contain the epidemic in one place now. Let's hope they shoot themselves instead of others, help to civilize the race. Now we've trapped the cause of the plague in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And if you listen quietly, you can hear them them shooting from grave to grave. If you listen quietly, you can hear them shooting from grave to grave. If you listen quite quietly, you can even hear them shooting from grave to grave to grave to grave to grave. Melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and nevermore to fire them. Melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and nevermore desire them. Melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and nevermore to fire them. Melt the guns, melt the guns, melt the guns, and nevermore desire them. Melt the guns. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do.